While I've been working on other things, I thought I may as well take a look at Level, the Flat Earth propaganda film released on Earth Day this year. Unfortunately, this film sucks. Every claim this movie makes is a repackaged version of the same stuff Flat Earthers spewed half a decade ago. Regardless, I think it may be worth it to make this response, just for the fun of it. It'll be split into 4 parts, each dealing with the different facets of the Flat Earth and its claims. Let's begin this dissection, shall we? I know this is just a nitpick, but this is supposed to be the PG version, where the swear words are cut out. Why did they leave the swear words in here?
So there it is. The Earth from outer space. Do you believe this is a real, live recording?
No, not really. I think it's pretty easy to tell that this is from a movie or something. The video resolution is much higher than what we expect to see from a rocket or satellites like Himawari.
Then why would you fall for this? Maybe you just never paid attention. When you do pay attention, you start to notice things. Are you paying attention?
Perhaps you're paying a bit too much attention. Just because a video is taken from space doesn't mean that the Earth has to be the main focus of the video. By paying so much attention to the Earth, you lost sight of the actual focus of the footage, the rocket. This camera had a wide-angle lens, not because they wanted to show a supposedly false curve, but rather to show off as much of the back end of the rocket as possible whilst getting the Earth in the same frame.
Did you know that starting at the end of 2015 through 2017, Flat Earth was one of the top search terms in the USA, let alone the world?
Surprisingly enough, he's actually correct. Flat Earth does show up as a popular search term in the Google Trends 2016 archives, and the term is at its peak in search interest between 2015 and 2018. Stopped clock is right twice a day, I suppose.
While most of you were falling for the political charades.
Remember, only twice. While Flat Earth was popular, when pitted against the popularity of Clinton and Trump on graphs like this one, Flat Earth, fittingly, flatlines.
The rest of us were trying to discover the true nature about our world.
And failing miserably in the most hilarious ways possible, mind you.
My name is ODD-TV. I'm a local rapper here in Denver, Colorado.
I just want you to know the truth, so please don't shoot the messenger. It's a bitch, but this is how it is when you live.
I've been rapping for 20 years.
You've been rapping for longer than I've been alive, and yet your bars are still worse than my cooking.
There has never been one experiment that proves that the Earth is in motion.
Wrong. The Utvesh effect has been experimentally verified and demonstrates that Earth rotates. Earth's motion around the Sun has been demonstrated since the 18th century thanks to James Bradley's observations of stellar aberration.
When you try to find the curvature of the Earth, it's nowhere to be found.
Wrong again. This is from a video by J. Media, a flat earther. By compressing the image horizontally, as seen on the left of the screen, the curvature becomes clearly visible. I've covered this before in my response to M for Moron, and the playlist for it should be in the top right for you to watch.
You're living in a world where there's fake people faking events on TV.
Similarly to the video Eric played at the start, it's pretty easy to tell that the resolution of these videos is quite a bit higher than what we see from actual ISS footage. These are probably from a movie. Ironic.
I couldn't just sit around and do nothing.
Actually, you could have, and you should have. If you asked someone who knew the answers to the questions you had, then you would have understood why Flat Earth is complete BS, and wouldn't be making a fool of yourself online as you're doing now. What a pity.
There was videos everywhere. There was videos of people doing science.
At the same time, school teachers across the country taught people the difference between was and were.
Putting balloons up with a camera that doesn't have a fisheye lens on it, like a GoPro lens, a wide-angle lens. And they were using these cameras that didn't have those. The horizon rose to eye level, which would be impossible on a ball that would be falling away from you as you rose up.
That's because you don't have a reference frame to determine how much it should have dropped. This is a video by Madmelon 101 that has a reference frame and demonstrates that the horizon does not rise to eye level.
There's people putting out top 10 NASA hoax videos.
The claim that the crew of Challenger are still alive was debunked 6 years ago on Snopes.com. Link in the description.
Debunking the moon landing, picking apart NASA just left and right.
These so-called debunking videos were nothing more than compilations of people completely misunderstanding basic physics, cherry-picking, and refusing to do any sort of research while simultaneously yelling, "Do your own research!" at the top of their lungs.
They were panicking. Panicking because the platform they purchased 10 years ago was collapsing with truth.
With truth being a code word for stupidity, of course.
They want you to search for it, because they already changed their algorithm to be set up in their favor. None of this tells you our side of the story. These are all videos they put together, so you can watch and learn nothing. Nothing that any of us would show you.
This is the balance fallacy. Over the course of the last 7 years, every claim presented by flat earthers has been demonstrated to be either incorrect or completely irrelevant to the topic of Earth's shape. Flat Earth has no evidence, and making videos in favor of Flat Earth appear at the top of search results gives the position recognition that it does not deserve.
Like here, have you ever seen a time-lapse of the sun? Does it look like the Earth is rotating backwards and the sun is still? Or does it look like our sun is simply moving across our sky, traveling away from your perspective?
This is misleading. As the sun sinks closer to the horizon, it seems to shrink. This is not because the sun is moving away. It's because the atmosphere near the horizon is thicker and decreases the amount of glare that appears in the camera or your eyes. This has been demonstrated via the use of solar filters, something that Wolfie 6020 has done many times.
We're told that the sun is a massive ball of burning gas 93 million miles away.
Oh look, it's allegedly Dave, everybody's favorite piss drinker. Anyway, go on.
But if that were true, then all the light that arrives here would be parallel because it's so far away. And it has to be parallel because one of the most often cited supposed globe proofs is Eratosthenes' experiment between Alexandria and Syene, by which he calculated the size of the Earth. For that calculation to be accurate, the light must come down parallel. The only problem is that that's not what we see.
It's exactly what we see, Dave.
If you go out on a sunny day with broken cloud, what you'll see is that light comes down at angles, diverging angles. And that means that we can follow those light rays back to the source and triangulate the sun's height above the Earth, proving that the sun isn't millions of miles away.
Then such a triangulation should be easy to do. So why hasn't any flat earther actually done the triangulation? Anyway, there's a simple observation you can make at home that debunks the notion that corpuscular rays are not parallel. Take a sheet of loose-leaf paper and lay it on a table. I think we can all agree that the blue lines on it are parallel. Now, look at it from just above the surface of the table that it's on. Notice how the lines don't look parallel anymore? Let's take this a step further. Roll the sheet into a cylinder and tape it so it stays that way. Now look down the cylinder as you would a kaleidoscope or telescope. Despite the fact that the lines are parallel, due to your perspective, they appear to converge at a far-off point, just like corpuscular rays.
The reason you'd even think that the
If
sun...
the Earth was flat, wouldn't it be sunny all the time? I mean, have they ever even thought about it?
Well, if you'd let me finish, the reason you'd even think the sun would be visible from anywhere on Earth is because of the images they have shown you.
Not at all. We think that because it's basic logic. If you're on a planet's surface, there's nothing to obstruct your view of anything above or to the side of you. Because the sun never goes below the flat Earth, it should always be visible. You don't need indoctrination to come to that conclusion.
No one promoting this stands for truth.
Correct, since, once again, truth is a code word for stupidity.
You can keep believing in your fantasy gas ball 93 million miles away.
You can keep believing in your fantasy gas ball.
While we keep experimenting to try and figure out what the sun actually is.
And fail spectacularly on every single attempt.
And how close it could be. With a local hotspot, it should be easy to comprehend that the sun is small and close to you.
Wrong. The problem with the hotspot argument is that a hotspot requires the light source to be directly above the surface it's illuminating. In every instance of a so-called hotspot in high-altitude balloon footage, the hotspot appears in some place near the camera, which is usually in either Europe or the continental United States. Both of these places are north of the Tropic of Cancer, meaning that the sun cannot be directly overhead in the areas where the hotspots were observed. So no, they're not hotspots, and the sun is not nearby.
To put that in perspective, imagine a table 2 meters wide in a completely dark room, and you're holding a small but very bright light bulb, 3.4 millimeters across, and you are holding it about 31 centimeters above the table. What you'd see is a circular pool of light directly on the table, beneath the light bulb. But on the other side of the table, it would be in darkness.
No. Just because it's not in the direct path of the light does not mean that it's completely dark. Not to mention that the flashlight isn't obscured by anything, which means that the flashlight would still be visible from anywhere on the table, just like how the sun would be visible from anywhere on the Earth.
Now, it seems to our mind that if you were on the other side of the table, you would see the light, because it's, above the table. But that's not true, because on that part of the table, it's in darkness, meaning that the light isn't physically reaching that part of the tabletop.
Wait. What? Good, Dave. Just like I said, even when you're not directly under the flashlight, you can still see the flashlight. You just debunked your own claim.
It would appear to sink down in your field of view. That's perspective. The further away you get from it, the lower it will appear.
Looks like you've debunked yourself again. Notice how the lampposts appear to get continuously closer to the street and each other, but never actually converge? That's the problem with flurspective. The point of convergence is not at a specific distance from the observer. It's infinitely far away. The more an object moves towards the point of convergence as you move away from it, the slower it will continue to move towards that point. It will never reach the point of convergence, let alone move past it.
Our eyes cannot see farther than what they were designed to see, but that is no reason to keep them closed.
Wow, that's actually a good quote. Too bad the person who says it keeps his eyes closed all the time.
Pay attention to the sun rays here. This alone proves our local sun.
No, it doesn't. This is just glare. I would say to use a solar filter for this just like I did with the sunsets, but you don't even need that. At least, I didn't. This was taken in the morning without much cloud cover. This one, on the other hand, was taken with thick clouds. While they didn't block out the sun entirely, they blocked enough light to remove the glare that occurred in the earlier example. As we can see, the sun's angular size is very small, and does not change after sunrise.
And so do these shadows.
No, that would mean that the sun is smaller than an airplane, which it clearly isn't.
So what about the moon? We all witness the moon only illuminating the local clouds around it. That is because it is also a local light.
Wrong. It's actually because of the way in which light moves through translucent materials. When light travels to a destination, the straight, direct path is the shortest and easiest route. The more light has to deviate from that path when moving through a translucent material such as a cloud or a sheet of paper, the less likely it is to actually make it to your eyes, because it has to travel through more of the translucent material. Once again, you don't understand basic physics.
But one with opposite effects from the sun. As we can all agree, shade from the sun is cooler than direct sunlight. But did you know, the moon's shade is actually warmer than direct moonlight? The moon produces cold light, something the science priests must have forgotten to teach us all about in school.
Wrong again. These experiments fail because they don't actually test potential alternate explanations, such as radiative cooling. Flat Earth debunker Greater Sapien refuted this claim years ago. The link to that video is in the description.
Not only that, but at times we can see stars through the moon, proving it is not some solid rock 238,900 miles away.
It doesn't take much intuition to figure out that this is not a star. These so-called stars seen in the moon are always either video artifacts, birds, or man-made objects. This one is especially egregious though, because it's taken during the daytime.
In the 60s, true science regarding the moon was the shadow band topic of its era.
I consider myself to be an ordinary, humble person who wants to serve mankind with what man has striven for from the beginning of consciousness, with truth and understanding of the world.
Foster then goes on to claim that the moon is made from plasma, and that gravitational theory is wrong. However, there seem to be no records of his work, and we have no reason to take his claims seriously. On the other hand, he does say this about the moon.
The Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Oh, well, that will never happen.
People actually believe they walked on the moon.
That's because they did. Something I'll have to get to in part 2. On that note, see you next time.